just for expediency's sake, can we just get one or two representatives from each film? Like, obviously the director, maybe the producer from each film to come on down to participate in the Q&A. Did you guys like it? Also, I think because there were several Ohina films in here in this program. Is Gerard here? Gerard, come on down, Gerard. Everyone, I mean, you may know him already. Gerard Elmore is one of the directors of the Ohina Directors Lab now, right? Filmmakers Lab, but Ohina Showcase. Oh, yeah. It's just Ohina.
Yeah, it's the Ohina Labs.
Ohina Labs, that's right.
To make it shorter. So, 5 of the films that screened here were Ohina Lab films. That was Fall Guy, Other People, Pit Where Were You Born? Alex was part of the lab, and Anella was Molten. Sorry, it's like these are a bunch of them. And Alika was alumni from last year. And he did both.
Okay, so, why don't you each introduce yourself and pretend like you
Hi everybody, my name is Noah Wang. I did the film Mo'o, was the writer and director for it.
Director, editor for Down on the Sidewalk in Waikiki. Aloha, Aina Paikai, screenwriter and lead actor in Down on the Sidewalk in Waikiki. I'm Alex Megaro. I'm the producer of 808 How We Respond, directed by my friend Ian Bell, who wishes he could be here, but he's too busy being a new dad.
I'm Kelsey Johnston. I'm the writer-director of Driving.
Hello, I'm Melissa Ponishing. I'm the producer of Driving.
I'm Bryson Chun. I'm the director of Other People.
I'm Alex Pocari, and I directed The Pit Where We Were Born.
Stacey Fukuhara Barkley, and writer and executive producer of Like Mata.
I'm Reina Shishido, director of Like Mata.
Hi, my name is Bradley Crawford. I'm the writer-director of Fall Guy.
Hi, I'm Michael Tanju, the producer and VP of Fall Guy.
All right, so let's just start out with Fall Guy. So what was the idea behind it? And this is one of the, George, you want to talk about Fall Guy?
Yeah. I'll tee it up. So this is the one that was actually mentored by Eric Pearson, who was co-writer of Thor Ragnarok, worked with Taika on Thor Ragnarok. He personally mentored Bradley on this project from start to finish. And Bradley could talk about how elaborate that process was.
Yeah, well, I'll start off with the kind of where the idea came from. I actually had this idea back in high school, actually, and it kind of stemmed from bullying and some just general hatred and feeling like people were being hated for no reason. And as we, as I got older, I feel like we kind of live in a world where there's a lot of racism, there's a lot of sexism, there's a lot of, hatreds that people don't deserve, and that's kind of the seed of the idea. So I took it to the Ohina Labs where it got in, and I was very fortunate to get mentorship from Eric Pearson, and he introduced the idea of that what you say has physical consequences. He just kind of hit me with that early on. He's like, what if you did this? And it evolved from there, and I worked with him for several months to build the script out like that into what it became. And yeah, I feel like the film really just asks, how do we treat each other?
So how about another Ohina project like Mata? It's actually a web series, right? You come up with the idea behind that?
I guess it's semi-autobiographical. I grew up with a large extended Japanese family who was always in my business. And so the protagonist ran away when she was 18, graduated, and thought she'd be leaving Hawaii for good until her husband got a job in Hawaii. And then she found out nothing much has changed.
And then you're actually an attorney, right? So this is your
Yeah.
first foray into
Yeah.
producing?
Yes.
Alex, love the film. Can you talk about the conception, the idea behind it?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
great performances too. I mean, your actors are amazing. I'm gonna give a shout out.
Yeah, Eli, if you could stand up, I think you did a wonderful job. So that worked out really well. It's one of those rare ideas that just comes to you completely fully formed. And I just, in my day job, I do a lot of documentary work in the harm reduction space, and working with healthcare and in healthcare and with nonprofits who deal with people who are going through some of the struggles that you saw in my film. And I always just, the question that they always raise at their presentations is, how do you help somebody that doesn't want to be helped? And there's a whole philosophy behind that. And so from my daily work, I just, I'm going to tell a story that was reflective of the types of stories I was hearing in real life. And that's where it came from.
So Bryson was our Greenlight Award winner. There was a consensus in the room when we saw his script, and the mentors. He was actually the fastest decision ever, I think, of Ohina Labs, and we just had a lot of fun to it. And we gave him the Greenlight Award, and we funded the project, and we had to jump through hoops to get Windward Mall to say yes. And that was kind of the whole thing. And you can talk about that part.
Yeah, talk about shooting at Windward Mall, like logistics and whatnot.
Yeah, shooting at Windward Mall was rad. I grew up like on the Windward side my whole life, and I've just gone there. I mean, since I was a kid, and it's I don't know, it's like a stomping ground thing for me. But I mean, it's all owned by like Kamehameha schools, and I went there and I was like, oh, it's gonna be awesome. They're just gonna say yes. And they did say yes, so I'm not like dissing them, but it took a long time, and it was a lot of hoops to jump through, but it was really great being able to shoot there. It was awesome.
And then was it multiple nights or just all one night that you have to?
We had a night, and the movie is like one take, one shot, so we just did it about, I don't know, like eight times, and one was good.
Well, yes. Oh, you gotta tell the rest of it. Like, the last shot was our last.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's in the movie. We didn't hide it or anything. We couldn't. But the lights turned off on the mall. Like it was midnight, and we were allowed to be there, but there's just some kind of automatic thing, so all the lights turned off. It's in the movie. Maybe you noticed it, maybe not. But so yeah, we kind of ran over time, I think.
But there was no other takes possible.
That was it. So we used it, and the movie is done. And yeah, and my two actors are here. I see Ren and Jay. They didn't mess up once. Like, we messed up over and over and over. And then on the 8th one, we got it right. So they just kind of nailed it over and over.
So for driving, this is your thesis film, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you graduated from UCLA?
Yeah.
Can you talk about the idea behind the film? And,
Yeah.
I mean, is it autobiographical?
No,
Okay.
no, not at all. It just came to me in like thin air, and I have nothing to do with characters. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I don't know. I just really wanted to make a film in Hawaii. Growing up in Hawaii, I felt like a lot of films that are about Hawaii did not really depict a place that I knew, and I really wanted to show a different side of it. And I don't know. It was just like a story that was in my head, and I also want to do a story about to me, I don't really have shouting matches with people whenever there's conflicts, and I felt like in every film I see, there's a lot of yelling and external conflicts, and I just wanted to see what it would be like to make a film that's something that I can relate to more, and more internal conflicts, and to me that was more interesting. So I don't know, it's different.
Alex, producer of 808, How We Respond. This is actually, we actually had this conversation a couple nights ago because it premiered at other festivals like Sheffield and Tallgrass, and the reactions are very different. So, you were really kind of interested to see what the local reaction here, because a lot of people experienced that. So, what did you think of the reaction?
This seemed to be a realistic reaction. I say that because when we premiered this at Sheffield, which is in the UK, this is an event that no one really knows happened outside of Hawaii, because even on mainland the US, if you weren't paying attention to the news that day, it was just out of the news cycle immediately. So people were fairly ignorant of it. And when we premiered it in the UK, people were reacting as if we had made a Monty Python comedy. They were dying. And we're oh, we know it's engaging and hopefully cleverly edited, but it was not meant to be an outright comedy. Especially the girl near the end who's crying on camera saying, I wish I could see my family one more time, was a laugh riot line to them, which is insane. But also I think it plays into personal connection to the event, because the element of the film, there's this element of performance when you're filming yourself, no matter what it is. Even in this, people are genuinely terrified, I believe, but live streamers are, there's an element of performance to everything they do, even when it's 100% legit fear or grief or what have you. But I think people outside of here took it as she was full of shit and just performing for the camera, which I don't think is true at all. So it was nice to see with an audience who laughed a little bit, but also took it seriously.
This is all found footage online, right? So
Yes.
Oh, your stepson's in it.
My stepson's in it. I don't think he knows he's in it.
For real?
Just FYI. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, randomly.
So, okay, interesting. That's so Hawaii. But anyway, so you also talked about there's a lot of found footage online, but a lot of it's scrubbed, right? There's no longer, a lot of it doesn't exist anymore. Is that true?
A good chunk of it just has disappeared since. Yeah, we started searching for footage a month after it happened, and then we'd actually find some stuff, and if we didn't rip it offline immediately, it would just be gone the next time we looked for it. So I think there's something weirdly purposeful in some of that. Other cases, maybe if it was vlogger footage, they may have been slightly embarrassed. But I think it's an important document because, for one, again, people don't know this happened, which is probably crazy to all of you here, because almost all of you have a real experience with it. But also, it's a new way to respond to a potential tragedy or potential death. People thought they were going to die, and they kept filming themselves. And that's a foreign reaction, at least to me, but I don't think it's necessarily a good or bad thing. I think it's just an interesting way to deal with impending doom, or maybe it's someone creating a document of their life in that moment. So yeah, I think the fact that people were maybe taking stuff offline, it could be that personal embarrassment, feeling strange about it, but also, I don't know, I think people were trying to hide something as well.
Okay. Sidewalk team. Justin, can you talk about the idea behind it, and the use of the poetry and how that was the idea for the story?
Yeah, definitely. So down on the sidewalk, the screenplay and the story The screenplay and the story was developed and inspired by a collection of poems by the late Hawaiian poet Wayne Kamuali'i Westlake, who he himself was a janitor in Waikiki in the early 1970s, and used poetry to express a lot of the frustrations and anger that he was dealing with, seeing the things he was seeing, questioning the things he was questioning as a Hawaiian in our own homeland at that time, just before like Hokule'a and the resurgence of the Hawaiian Renaissance and this kind of resparking of our collective cultural consciousness. And so, yeah, but the thing was he passed away young, in his 30s. He passed away in 1984. And at that time, a lot of his work was not really known or published. And it wasn't until later in the 2000s that my high school English teacher, actually, Richard Hamasaki, who's in the audience today, and was a good friend of Westlake's, was involved in, they actually found a huge box of his unpublished work tucked away in a shed under a tarp. And so they spent the greater part of the 2000s going through it and published an anthology of his work in 2009. And then in order to honor him and his work, then went forward and kind of reached out to a bunch of different bands and musicians throughout the Pacific to each take one of the 26 poems in the collection down on the sidewalk in Waikiki and create a song using the poem, the words as lyrics. They came up with this 26-track album and then reached out to a bunch of different fine artists throughout the Pacific to each take one of the poems and create a visual piece, and had this amazing art gallery exhibit. And then, so the film was kind of the culmination piece to honor Wayne and his work. And so, yeah, the words, the characters, the themes, even the monologue that the janitor performs at the end is word for word one of Westlake's poems.
And I only know you as a filmmaker, so I mean, I was so surprised to see you be the lead in this. I mean, do you act as well on stage?
No,
First time, right?
Yeah, it wasn't by choice. We were looking for someone.
Why was it by choice?
Yeah, no, it's been a good part of time casting, trying to look for somebody, and no one really fit. And so we had an ultimatum. So actually, people had approached Justin saying, "Oh, what if Ina did it?" And I didn't really see myself as that character. But I think with the history of Westlake and him passing on in 1984, and I was born in 1984, and so there was kind of this. Also, I was tasked with taking his words and turning it into a script, and so I felt kupono to have to perform it, because poetry is not just written word, but actually spoken, and so it seemed like my kuleana to do it.
Great. This story came out of an amazing trip you had in New Zealand, right? You
did. You really did your research.
I remember that story. Just briefly.
Yeah, our last film got into a festival called Maoriland in New Zealand that takes place in Otaki. I went with these guys. And over the course of 2 weeks, I was housed with Chapin Hall, the cinematographer, who I had met in passing but never really had many conversations with up until that trip. And by happenstance, we were housed together and we went through this entire festival. We were super inspired. We'd start every day like in our rooms talking about the movies we're gonna see. We'd end every night going to an after party and then talking about everything we saw and like how we could channel all the inspiration and influence into a project. And so he had these incredible lenses on him, and he was going to be back in Hawaii for 1 week, and he said if I could write something in a week, we could shoot it and use his lenses. So, yeah, that was the impetus.
So, I mean, so from that, what spawned, what was the idea for the film?
The idea for the film, like any idea, it's like an amalgamation of influences, but the primary influence is probably Kiara Lacey's Out of State, which is a documentary that deals with incredible documentary. But so I wanted to try to narrativize that because I felt like there's a depth of emotion that I felt like we could explicate on screen. So.
Okay, great. Nella. So you captured things like growing up in Hawaii. Everyone in high school would ghost hunting, right? That was like a Oregon's Corner or Polly Hideaway or something like that. Can you just talk about the idea behind your film?
Well, actually, the origin of the film, or the inspiration for the film, came from like several things, like Lika says, but it's mostly kind of a very personal story. So when I was a kid, I did do like a ghost tour, a ghost walk once, and I loved it so much that the whole scene with the gate, it was kind of built the story around that. But the main inspiration for it is just whenever I see movies in the world that deal with death, or like there's a funeral and the characters are in mourning and they're crying and they have this big cathartic thing. I see that in movies all the time, and I just remember thinking, like, that wasn't my experience. So when I was 15, my father passed away, and I didn't have any of that. I never talked to anyone, and I never talked about it with my friends, and it was just kind of this thing that people have difficulty speaking about. So I wanted to capture this idea about like the difficulty of comforting someone in loss, and about mourning and the guilt associated with not mourning correctly. So it's kind of the two characters, they butt heads because they have different beliefs. While Mika, the kid, he's very spiritual, he believes in the afterlife. Ikoa is more of a realist, he doesn't believe in that stuff. So it's just really about how they'll never see eye to eye in that way. So that's just kind of how my experience growing up. I wanted to show a different way people deal with death, because it doesn't get talked about once in the film, and that was intentional, because I just wanted to be one of those things where that's just how it is, like no one talks about it. So that was like the main inspiration.
And Nella was Judges Award, so Dana Miller was her mentor, and she wrote on Narcos and Newsroom with Aaron Sorkin. And she shepherded Anela through the process, as well as picks, kind of stepped in and helped you get kickstarted and gave you.
Sidebar. The credits are incomplete, so there's a lot of names and things missing. It's a work in progress. And there's other things work in progress.
At least you made it for the screening. So.
Yeah.
And I think we have time for one or two questions. And if you guys have any questions, just shout them out. Keep it short and efficient. Maybe just target to one filmmaker instead of like asking everyone to say something. But we're also gonna like hang out outside. If you have any more questions with the filmmakers. Oh, and one quick thing is like no one leaves because we have to do a group photo at the lobby. Okay, so any questions? Go. Shout it out.
Did you write Well Look How You Found in 1 week? Like actually 1 week?
Yes.
And then he just came back from the Imaginative Film Festival in Canada, in Toronto, and didn't you win?
Yeah, we won. It was an incredible festival, and super unexpected. Didn't even know we were nominated, to be honest. So many deserving films.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
One more question? One more question? Just on that? No? Okay. So, actually, we have, let's do a programming announcement about the Ohina Showcase.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Anderson. So, just so everyone knows, on the 14th at 6:15, I think, 6:15 p.m., right here, we're going to have the Ohina Short Film Showcase. HIFF presents the Ohina Short Film Showcase, where we're going to show the Ohina films together, and we'll do an extended Q&A with our Ohina fellows and talk about the process of it.
But we'll have another encore of all this entire program next weekend, probably November 17th. It's already sold out, but there's a rush line. But there's also screenings on many brands as well. So, okay, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for supporting.